Baba ki jai. Are you able to see my screen? Not yet, right? 1 second. Recording has started, but I got to share my screen.
No, 1 second. I'll have to get this on. Can you continue for some time?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you tell me when you're ready. So I'll start with the favorite couplets of Hafiz. The three messages that Baba loved. So Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. Message 2. About what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong, because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. The third message. I am slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. These are messages of Hafiz, and with that, we go back to where we were on Listen Humanity. So we actually read a common message about Baba's avatarhood, which has been quoted by Don Stevens. And then we continued on a second larger message where Baba is talking about the avatarhood. So I will continue from where we left off yesterday. And Ashok, you can tell me when you're ready, no problem. Okay. And I will start on page 228 on the second paragraph. That's where we started. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. These precepts are constantly unfolded for humanity in one manner and another by the avatar of the age who leads humanity imperceptibly towards the truth. To put these precepts of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds into practice is not as easy as it would seem, but yet not impossible. To live up to them, though, is as infinitely difficult as to practice a living death in the midst of life. In the world, there are countless sadhus, Mahatmas, Mahapurushas, saints, yogis, and valis. The few genuine ones of these are in a category of their own, neither on a level with the ordinary human being, nor on a level with that state, which is the highest of the high. I am neither a Mahatma, nor a Mahapurush, neither sadhu, nor saint, neither yogi, nor vali. Those who come to me to gain wealth or retain their possessions, to seek relief from suffering, or help to fulfill their mundane desires, to these I declare once again that I am not sadhu, saint, Mahatma, Mahapurush, or yogi. To seek such things through me is to court utter disappointment. However, such disappointment is only apparent, for eventually it is invariably instrumental in bringing about complete transformation of one's worldly desires. Sadhus, saints, yogis, valis, and such others who are on the via media can and do perform miracles. They satisfy the transient material needs of individuals who approach them for help. But if I am not a sadhu, saint, yogi, mahapurush, nor vali, then what am I? The natural conclusion would be that either I am just an ordinary human being or I am the highest of the high. Definitely, I can never be included among those having the intermediary status of real saints, sadhus, yogis, and such like. If I'm just an ordinary man, my capabilities and powers are limited. I am no different from an ordinary human being. In such case, people should not expect any supernatural help from me in the form of miracles or spiritual guidance. Also, to approach me to fulfill their desires would be absolutely futile. On the other hand, if I am beyond the level of an ordinary human being, I'll read that again. On the other hand, if I am beyond the level of an ordinary human being and much beyond the level of saints and yogis, then I must be the highest of the high. In such case, to judge me with the human intellect and to approach me with worldly desires would be the height of ignorance and folly. If I am the highest of the high, my will is law, my wishes govern the law, and my love sustains the universe. Then your apparent calamities and transient sufferings are only the outcome of my love for the ultimate good. Therefore, to approach me for deliverance from predicaments and to expect me to satisfy worldly desires would be asking me to do the impossible, to undo what I have already ordained. If you accept Baba in all faith as the highest of the high, it behooves you to lay down your life at his feet rather than crave fulfillment of your desires. Not this one life, but your millions of lives would only be a small sacrifice to lay at the feet of one such as Baba, who is the highest of the high. For Baba's unbounded love is the only sure and unfailing guide which can lead you safely through the innumerable blind alleys of your transient life. They cannot obligate me who surrender their all, body, mind, possessions, with a motive. Nor can I be snared by those who surrender because they understand that to gain the everlasting treasure of bliss, they must relinquish passing possessions. A desire for greater gain still clings to their surrenderance, and therefore the surrender cannot be complete. You must all know that if I am the highest of the high, my role demands that I strip you of all your possessions and wants, consume all your desires, and make you desireless. This I must do rather than satisfy your desires. Sadhus, saints, yogis, and valis can give you what you want, but I take away your wants, free you from attachments, and liberate you from the bondage of ignorance. I am the one to take, not give what you want. Intellectuals can never understand me through intellect alone. If I am the highest of the high, it is impossible for intellect to gauge me, nor can my ways be fathomed by the limited human mind. I am not to be attained by those who, through love of me, stand reverentially by in rapt admiration. I am also not for those who ridicule me and point at me with contempt, nor am I here to have tens of millions flock around me. I am for the select few who, scattered among the crowd, silently surrender to me their all, body, mind, and possessions. Still more, I am here for those who, having surrendered all, never give another thought to their surrender. All those are mine who are prepared to renounce even the very thought of their renunciation, and who, keeping constant vigil in the midst of intense activity, await their turn to lay down their lives for the cause of truth at a glance from me. Those who have indomitable courage to face cheerfully the worst calamities, who have unshakable faith in me, are eager to fulfill my slightest wish at the cost of happiness and comfort. These indeed truly love me. From my point of view, from my point of view, the atheist who honorably accepts his worldly responsibilities and discharges them conscientiously is far more blessed than the man who thinks he is a devout believer in God and yet shirks the responsibilities apportioned to him by divine law, running instead after sadhus, saints, and yogis to seek relief from the suffering which ultimately would have effected his liberation. To have also one eye glued on the delightful pleasures of the flesh and to expect to see a spark of eternal bliss with the other is not only impossible, but the height of hypocrisy. I cannot expect you to understand what I want you to know all at once. It is my charge to awaken you from time to time through the ages, sowing the seed in your limited minds, which in due course and with proper attention on your part must germinate, flourish, and bear that fruit of true knowledge, which is your birthright. On the other hand, if, led by your ignorance, you persist in going your own way, none can stop the course of progress you have chosen. For that too is progress, which leads you after innumerable incarnations to realize what I want you to know now. Awake now and save yourself from further entanglement in the maze of delusion and self created suffering, which is dependent upon your ignorance of the true goal. Listen and strive for freedom by placing ignorance in its proper position. Be honest with yourself and God. It is possible to fool one's neighbors and even the whole world, but it is impossible to escape the knowledge of the omniscient. Such is divine law. Seek me not to extricate yourself from predicaments, but find me in order to surrender yourself wholeheartedly to my will. Do not cling to me for worldly happiness and short-lived comforts, but adhere to me through thick and thin, sacrificing your own happiness and comforts at my feet. Let my happiness be your cheer, and my comforts your rest. Do not ask me to bless you with a good job. Wish only to serve me more diligently and honestly without expectation of reward. Never beg me to save your life or the lives of your dear ones. Somebody needs to mute their mic, please. Hello.
Sorry. Just a minute.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Never beg me to save your life or the lives of your dear ones. Only beg me to accept you and permit you to lay down your life for me. Never expect me to cure you of your bodily afflictions. Beseech me, rather, to cure you of your ignorance. Never stretch out your hands to receive anything from me. Hold them high in praise of me, whom you have approached as the highest of the high. If I am the highest of the high, then nothing is impossible for me. However, I have often said that I do not perform miracles to satisfy individual needs, for this would only result in entangling the individual further into the net of ephemeral existence. On the other hand, for the spiritual upliftment and benefit of all humanity and all creatures, at certain periods, I do manifest the infinite power I possess in the form of miracles. However, miraculous experiences have often occurred to individuals who love and have faith in me, and these have been attributed to my nazar or grace. But I want everyone to know that it is not fit for those who love me to attribute such miraculous experiences to my state of the highest of the high. If I am the highest of the high, then I am above this illusory play of Maya. Therefore, the miraculous experiences described by those who love me or by those who love me unknowingly through other channels are only the product of their own firm faith in me. That unshakable faith often supersedes the course of play of Maya and thus produces what they describe as miracles. Such experiences, derived through firm faith, do not entangle those individuals into further binding in illusion, but eventually do good. If I am the highest of the high, then a wish by my universal will can give God realization to one and all in an instant, freeing every creature in creation from the shackles of ignorance. But blessed is knowledge that is gained through the experience of ignorance in accordance with the divine law. Such knowledge is attainable in the midst of ignorance through the guidance of perfect masters and by surrenderance to the highest of the high. Sorry. An entire book could be written in commentary on these two important documents. However, I intend to belabor only on one point. If one forgets for the moment that these statements are being made by a living man, and if one neglects temporarily the crisis in judgment which they pose, then one cannot but be struck by the fundamental nature of what is said. So, from this paragraph, we are starting with it's the end of the quote, and it's Don talking again, and I think this is the full message that was given as the highest of the high message in Dehradun. I continue. Here, without question, is a man who knows to the nth degree what he is talking about and who possesses an insight into an absolute ethics which would tax the greatest hearts and minds. But the residual question which causes the reader to tend to neglect the import of what is being said is the almost unbelievable statement by Baba that he is the highest of the high. Baba says dispassionately that it is the lot of the avatar to be accepted by only a handful in his lifetime. There would seem no need then for those who accept Baba to try to convince the rest of humanity that it is overlooking the best bet of many lifetimes. However, it is important to look briefly into the meaning of rejection in general terms. Sooner or later, each human being must be willing to annihilate for a time his own sense of self-determination in a sense of absolute trust of another. There is a footnote on the absolute trust of another. Trust in or identification with another human being is not peculiar to the follower of the Guru. It has its modern counterpart in the relation of patient to psychoanalyst, a friend to trusted advisor, of one who loves to the beloved. Such a relation apparently involves a very fundamental principle of nature in which the complexities of self can be attacked at their root through the loss or lessening of self in the being of another. That was trust. Yeah, starting from here. Only in this manner can there be the opportunity to comb out the snarls of countless accumulated actions in one's nature. Even when a person is unhappiest, he still has a persistent sense of unconscious hope that his own deliberated actions will one day lead him to success and happiness. Usually, it is only the person who has almost entirely ceased to hope who is willing to take the conscious step of annihilating his own ego in the person of another. For in annihilating his ego, he denies the very core of the right of free will, of self determination. And in that destruction, there is bound to go his most stubborn, ego centered hope for the future. Once it is gone, he is really at sea. There is no landmark, no point of reliance or help, only that cause or person to whom he has perhaps by now given his allegiance. This is a frightening position, and it no wonder that most people would prefer to trust their own fallible but visible sense of self-determination rather than surrender it to another's possible whims. There are few people who have reached either such desperation in the successive traps of life or enlightenment in the inner processes of the heart to be willing to trust their fate implicitly to another being. This is the challenge which frightens people, not only with Baba, but to a degree with all religious personages, faiths, and movements. Baba poses the issue indelibly, however clearly and repeatedly. For this reason, there is often little opportunity to appreciate the scope and style of his statements. The human challenge they contain is too profound. Then, one day, the great teacher passes on. The words can be read with academic interest in their loftiness of precept and the beauty of their phrasing. The rugged, stripped bare challenge of a personal and immediate surrender is no longer present. Then the great man begins to be appreciated. Or is he appreciated really? Actually, I do not think he is. The real importance of such a person is in what is done in the direct personal relationship. The important people are the ones who went through whatever hell there was in fighting the thing through in the intensity of the living challenge. What comes after may have its glory, its beauty, its mass acceptance, but these are a pale shadow to the real man and the vitality of the living relation. So, unfortunately, we don't get access to that, but what does one do? But at least we have the pale, in Don's words, what comes after may have its glory, its beauty, its mass acceptance, but these are but a pale shadow to the real man and the vitality of the living relation. Well, that's our lot, so we'll stick to that. And I continue. This is the challenge for man, and there are always individuals on earth who will present it to him. At some time, he must meet it and finally realize that the one who poses it does not do it for himself, but for love of the people who must know themselves. Ashok?
Yeah. I'll just take up. I just come to the soft part of the Listen Humanity. I just logged into my laptop. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Are you comfortable to? Yeah. Okay, I'll go another page. Yeah.
Page 233. Or where should I? 234.
Yeah, 234. Yeah, please. You can start from 234.
1 second. Give me a minute.
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure, no problem. Midway handover. Ashok takes over at this time.
Okay. 1 second. Is it the
No,
process?
take your time.
The process of finding? 1 second.
This process of finding, yes.
Okay.
And I said as I said, we are dropping off from we finished Baba's highest of the high message. Then Don continues his commentary, and just now he gave us a complex about how he is more lucky and superior, and we are inferior as we are dealing with the pale option of not having his physical presence. But with that having been said, I transfer control and the meeting over to Ashok so he can continue reading from this point on, because I had some other preoccupations that I need to attend to at this time. I shall come back towards the end and end the call. Ashok, you ready?
Can you see my screen?
1 second. Not yet. So you got to share.
Yeah, I am trying that. Okay. Karthik, I think you continue. I'm sorry. Some issue here. I don't know why it's not happening.
Okay, what exactly are you doing?
I'm trying to share the screen. That's all. The share content. Something
Yeah.
is fine.
So click on the window, the black window that you see. You click on that after you click share.
There is a okay. 1 second. Share.
Do it. Were you able to do it, Ashok?
No, Karthik. I'm afraid you'll have to continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Some technical issue. I don't know. Some very funny thing.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, I'll continue. If either Sunil or Kama are in a position, or even Sanjay are in a position to continue reading, please say that now and take your time. I can continue for a couple of more pages and let me know when you're comfortable and want to take over. Thank you. And I continue on page 234.
I'll do it, Karthik. Just give me 5 minutes. Yeah.
Take your time. Tell me when you're ready. Thank you, Sunil. This process of finding oneself through losing the self in a perfect being is the essential core of Baba's technique in dealing with people. All of the puzzling and sometimes distressing admonishments he makes are aimed at this goal. It isn't that one's own self is necessarily
visible.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did that to let Ashok share his screen. So yeah, it should be coming through now. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It isn't that one's own self is necessarily a bad thing. It just happens to have the unfortunate property of seeming completely separate. Once having lost oneself in the master's being, not through desire, for that again simply emphasizes the separateness, but through the welding action of a unifying love, then much or even all of the illusion of separateness is lost. Baba's constant exhortation to give up all and come to him is first of all a dramatic but honest effort to get the individual to withdraw his attention from a multitude of distractions. This is the first essential step. The next is to lose one's own self completely in Baba. This is the part which is resisted so mightily. Such a step has absolutely nothing to do with enhancing the prestige of Baba. If he were a sublime egotist, it could. In cold print, the repeated insistence on this point sounds as if Baba might be such a divine egotist? In the presence of Baba, one understands at once that this is completely aside from the true issue. The question of losing oneself in Baba may still be acute even after meeting Baba, but the possibility of Baba's involvement for Baba's own personal reasons falls out of the picture. The issue now is the real extent of one's trust and love versus the persistent habit of one's sense of separateness. In this arena, the true battle is waged. It is an astonishingly passive battle on Baba's part. He is simply himself and shows constantly an unbelievable forgiveness and thoughtfulness. How can one's ego go on constantly rebelling against him? Whatever one's rebellion flares, it is met only by understanding and compassion. Finally, rebellion turns back upon itself, and there is rebellion against rebellion itself. The wall of separative egotism is breached at this point in identification with another human being. This is the way known to lovers, to the mystics of the world religions, and to many who deal honestly and patiently with the deepest needs of modern man. The only question is how well the person to whom one identifies knows his own self. The positive effects resulting from the identification will depend largely on the answer. Even in the event that there is no greater depth of perception of self in the other, the fact of winning some sense of oneness is nevertheless a positive gain in the direction of reality. On the other hand, if there is greater knowledge of the self in the other being, then the possibilities of the situation are rich. To realize those possibilities, the link between the two must be completely unobstructed. For the possibilities can be completely exhausted only if there is a complete sense of oneness born of honesty, sincerity, and true depth of feeling. This means that there can be no sense of separateness or of personal interest in contrast to that of the other person. This would act only as a checkpoint for the free flow of self to self. The age-old question of desire owes its continuing importance to its effect on this linking bridge of oneness. Desire has a simple statement to make: I desire you. It is only necessary to reflect on one's own desires to understand that they emphasize the separation of one who desires and the unobtainable nature of the object desired. Therefore, desire is a problem not primarily because of the physical element, which is so deeply involved, but because of the emotional element of separateness which feeds it. Love also has a very simple statement to make: I love you. One has only to reflect for a few moments to find that here the inner sense is quite different, being one of closeness, of security, in a word, of oneness. This is why love has always instinctively been respected, praised, and sought. It feeds man and brings him far in the direction of knowing his own self through knowing another. If lust had been ordained to have this effect, lust would have been rightfully acclaimed by the poets and mystics. Social customs and taboos are based in the long run on an almost unerring sense of what generally aids or hinders man in his constant endeavor to find his real self. Morality is not an act of piety, but of effort to lay the climate in which the seed of self-knowledge may sprout. When one is moral for the approval of society, then one is immoral, and the effort is worse than worthless. When one is moral because of deep internal needs, then the sun really shines. But one should never assume that one man's morality is another's. Sunil?
Yes, could you tell me which number, Karthik?
Sure. It's 236, starting from the top.
236.
You can type it on the page field on top, and it should take you there.
With social morality bears the
There's
simulation.
yeah. Perfect.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
Apologies for this interruption and change midway, but thank you, Sunil, for jumping in. And I will jump off for a bit and then come back towards the end. Avatar Meher Baba
Is my
ki jai.
screen visible? Anybody can confirm?
It's black. Can you move it to the Adobe page, please? I just see a black screen. Maybe it's just me. Others,
Okay,
can somebody confirm?
Blank screen.
I'll stop sharing, share again.
Yeah. Share desktop.
Yeah. Okay, share desktop. Let me do that. Yeah, hold on.
I think you started sharing it already. So yeah, stop and then start again.
Okay, can you see the screen now?
No. Others?
Just wait. Just wait. It must be not yet. Yeah.
Maybe
Not yet.
Did you see in between?
No. Well.
I think we can. Sunil, you can continue reading even without the text, I suppose.
Okay.
I am okay with that.
Yeah. Today, Baba wants us to focus on mind than on the book.
And the visual.
Okay, I'll start reading. Karthik, go on.
Go on. Thank you. Thank you, Sunil. Yeah. Please go ahead.
No problem. Social morality bears the same relationship to the love of another as religion does to the guiding of man to find his soul. It is a helpful first step, but there must be room for rapid change and progress when the real query comes in sight. Then morality becomes really alive, is self-generating, and often has little resemblance to the average conventionalized version. All morality, whether social or personal, is aimed at the eventual development of the most honest and therefore most complete love of another person. The love of another person is one of the greatest goods because it strips bare the self and fuses it into the substance of another. As this happens, it is realized dimly or intensely that no fusion was necessary. The oneness was there all the time. As the sense of oneness grows, there is the possibility of plumbing to the depths of oneself through the sense of realization of self in another. At this point enters the mystic, the great religious teacher, the saint, the guru, the Messiah. It is possible to realize one's own self, one's own true nature, completely and irrevocably through establishing a perfect sense of oneness with one who has perfectly realized himself. Such a person is called God realized, for the theorem also states that the one who has perfectly realized himself has discovered that he and the Father are one. Therefore, the immense importance of the Christ, for in him resides the greatest opportunity to achieve perfect oneness with the divine being. If one studies Meher Baba's statements in the context of this ultimate challenge to achieve the ultimate goal, then they will be seen to lead with the unvarying straightness to this point. One may not be able to determine for oneself whether Baba is perfect instrument for the achievement of this goal, but if he is not, then he has laid out necessary course with astonishing clarity. One final time, let us thank Meher Baba for one final time, let us let Meher Baba speak for himself on this point. I am the one so many seek and so few find. No amount of intellect can fathom me. No amount of austerity can attain me. Only when one loves me and loses one's self in me am I found. And again, all these statements and messages can lead us nowhere on the spiritual path. Reasoning and mental conviction also lead us nowhere. Even actual experience falls short of the highest state. The more you try to understand God, the less you understand Him. How can He, who is beyond all explaining, be described? His being infinitely easy to know has rendered Him infinitely difficult. The secret is that you have to become what you already are. You can know me as one of you and one in you only when the veils of separateness are lifted. And this can be done if you love me honestly and wholeheartedly. Lose yourself in Baba and you will find that you eternally were Baba. There can be no compromise in love. It has either to be full or not at all. I say with divine authority that I am the Ancient One and the slave of those who really love me. I'm getting to the Appendix 1, directions given by Meher Baba, November 1955, particularly for the participants of Sehwaz weeks and in general for all connected with Baba. Excuse me. I want you to read carefully and absorb these directions as well as other items arranged alongside. There's asterisk here. The asterisks to these directions as well as other items mentioned were posted on a sort of bulletin board inside the hall in which most of the Sehwaz meetings were held. Namely, the directions are namely the framed gist of circular number 25 of 1/5/1955, the two charts of God and love, the list of donations for the Sehwaz weeks. The donations were made by various Indian devotees. No one, and that also includes those who have come for Sehwaz, should under any circumstances, either directly or indirectly, ask me for favors, rewards, money, jobs, health, or other material things, not even for spiritual gain. The best is not to ask for anything. If anything at all is to be asked for, the first one should ponder whether one has required degree of determination and courage to ask for love of Baba. If one has that much determination and courage, one should be ready to surrender so completely as literally to give up and let go of everything, body, mind, heart, and the self should be able to remain alive and dead simultaneously. To all of you who believe that and feel that I am the avatar, I say that there is no need at all to ask me for anything because I must know best when and what to do for one and all, and what to give to you and all. Your faith and belief demand that you should feel happy to be resigned equally to whatever comes from me or whatever is taken away from me. As and when I bless anyone with peace and plenty, money and children, name and fame, etc., he and others should not feel elated at this. Their concern should be only to keep their minds and hearts focused on what they believe me to be, the one reality. If I am free to give as I wish, I must also remain free to take away as and when I deem it best, in any way and at any time. That also means that as and when I take anything away from anyone, he should not raise a cry, because his concern must likewise remain focused on my reality and not on thing I take away. From the beginning of all beginnings, I have been saying, I say it now, and to the end of the ends, I will say it, that he who loves God becomes God. It is a fact that I have come amongst you. One of these days, the whole world will come to realize that I have come where I have come from the purpose of my coming. I repeat once again that I have come neither to establish panths and jats, nor to establish mandirs, masjids, churches, and ashrams in the world. I have come to receive the beauty and give the blessing of love. All else but God, whether rites, rituals, or ceremonies, in the name of religion, worldly possessions, family, money, or one's own physical body, all else but God is illusion. In response to my call to one and all to leave all and then come to me, some have come. A few have responded for the sake of spiritual enlightenment, others to gain peace and escape from worldly strife and entanglements, while a few have come through their love for me to find me as I am. Those who have come to me have naturally become dependent upon me, but in spite of that, I, as Baba, remain free and independent. I have been seeing to their requirements with the money which has been coming in and going out in the spirit of love. I accept with love what is offered to me with love, and I also disperse it out of love. I neither obtain money through miracles nor am I connected with any money-making business. There are those who have offered what they can spare, and there are those who have dedicated their all to me and to my cause, unmindful of money for the sake of money. Under the existing conditions of no compromise from me, no bindings upon me, and no undertakings upon me, my dependents must also be made to feel quite free of their material dependence upon me. Thus, they will be able to maintain a pure relationship of love for the sake of love. There's an asterisk and a footnote. It says, these were conditions laid down by Baba to his followers in circular number 25. I now wish to be outwardly what I always am inwardly, living solely in love, for love, and with love. In that spirit, the whole world could live with me, irrespective of whether or not there happen to be any provision for food and shelter for the todays as well as for the tomorrows. As it is, I'm free and no bindings touch me, but I should be free of the need to bother about arrangements for others. I now want love to reign supreme outwardly as it always does inwardly in me. How can one explain love? There are as many ways of explaining love and obedience as there are men. There can thus be no end to the understanding of them except through obedience based on love and through love itself. All great saints, teachers, and masters say the same thing in one way or another, whether the emphasis is laid on love for the sake of love or feeling that on obedience in the cause of love. For spontaneous surrender, the heart must, so to speak, be worn on one's sleeve. One must be ever ready to place one's neck under the ever sharp knife of command of the beloved, and the head should figuratively be detached in order that it might be completely surrendered at the master's feet. Obedience should be so complete that one's concern with it makes one much awake to possibilities as it makes one deaf to impossibilities, as envisaged by the poet. दरमियाने कहरे दरिया तख्ता बंदम करदाए बाद में गुए क्या गुए के बाद में गुए के दामन तर मकुन होशियार बाश. I was tied to a raft and thrown into the ocean, and then I was warned to be careful not to let my robe get wet. Yet, all this does not and cannot explain the required degree of continued readiness for love and obedience to love. In fact, one of the three reasons for this sevas is to help you grasp what love and obedience really mean. You must have such a clear picture in your minds of this sevas as to forget completely such things as declarations, messages, and discourses to me. This is not an occasion for the fulfillment or the taking and breaking of past and future promises. You have got to remove from your minds any picture of me up dais and you sitting before me, as has been experience of most of you present here. I want you to be with me, near me, before me, in an entirely different atmosphere, so that you can freely breathe the air of my personal presence. We must be together as intimately as if we were living under the same roof for no purpose other than that of living with each other and for each other. Do not look forward to any functions, meetings, timetables, programs, agendas, or any cut and dried plans. You have simply to be near me all the time that I remain with you, playing, sitting, walking, joking, discussing serious things, or listening to stories. I want you to live with me the day-to-day life I normally lead.
Someone has
You are
to
not.
mute. Sorry, there's some background noise. Please, can I ask others to mute, please?
Is it okay? Can I continue?
Okay, now. There was some background noise. Thank you.
Just give me a moment. There's a bit of noise at my end also.
You can continue.
Dharwada
You can continue.
Okay, yeah. You are not expected to read, study, meditate, or pray, but to feel at home with me as naturally and unreservedly as you do at home in the midst of your own family and friends. I want you to be your natural, unreserved self, free from any fear or anxiety, selves, putting aside all the superficial niceties one usually assumes in social life. Being in my company, watching me, and being watched by me, you will automatically learn and unlearn a lot which no amount of teaching can convey. In short, there are three reasons for this Sehwas program. To give you my closest company in order to bring out the oneness between us. To help you understand love and obedience, and to make you imbibe these twin aspects of the nectar of the infinite existence behind all life. To show you how to do my work of spreading love. However much I may explain, you cannot have a true idea of the enormous strain on my physical body in these last 12 months. To say the least, I'm utterly exhausted physically, yet I intend to exert myself further for the whole Sehwas month in order to impress truly upon you certain points. There are points which I have got to drive in deeper and deeper, not only for you all who are able to be near me physically, but for all others also who love me and obey me, as well as for other reasons which are not apparent here and now. These points you will have to grasp through the three reasons of Sehwas as given above. Therefore, during the 7 days, above everything else, forget your worries, comforts, discomforts, home and business affairs. In short, forget about everything concerning your daily life except your present life here with me. As I have stated, I have offered this Sehwas at the cost to me of additional physical exertion because of all who love me and obey me, including those who are physically absent. The only explanations you should expect from me during the Sehwas will be on love, obedience, work of spreading my love, freedom from apparent binding of those dependent on me. I want you all to take particular note that I would feel happy if each one of you not only possessed but read and digested God Speaks from the first to the last page as the last book of its kind by me. I would likewise be happy if amongst you who can possibly do so will see that this work is translated and made available in as many languages as possible for those who cannot read and understand English. Jai Baba. Appendix 2. Anybody wants to discuss or say anything before I go to Appendix 2? Okay, I'll continue reading Appendix 2. Reminiscences.
Jai Baba. I think the last paragraph that you read about Baba's emphasis on reading God Speaks, and I think here is a clear indication why it's important for Baba lovers as well as other spiritual aspirants if they have the chance to read God Speaks. It gives this is an instruction from Baba itself. So no more needs to be said. The importance of reading God Speaks as well as discourses. And the other thing about the subject of love, my insight is that the whole topic of love that John Stevens talks about, and Baba has talked about love, obedience, surrender, sacrifice. Couple of things from my understanding, having read and gone through all the different messages that whenever we talk about the lover and the beloved, which is the spiritual aspirant and his master, there is always this separateness. But it is important to transcend that. So whenever we are looking at the divine beloved, whether it's the avatar or the perfect master, we have to also think about the oils part, our innermost loving self. The whole point of Baba's instruction is to focus on our realized self, which is the same in all of us, number one. And number two is when we talk about love, obedience, surrender, sacrifice to the perfect master, it is actually extrapolating towards our day-to-day relationships with in life, the relationship we have in our personal life, professional life, um, you know, material life and spiritual life. Everywhere, whenever we need to, do something in our, suppose you're doing a project or something like that, uh, love is the only way that makes it succeed. So in a way, what for me, Baba's message is that whatever we do in life, right from the time we get up in the morning till the time we go to sleep, if we can do it with love and able to follow his messages as much as possible, then we are nearer to him in terms of the love, obedience, surrender, sacrifice, plus also nearer to uniting with our own self. Because the whole idea is to dissolve the ego personality self, which is the false I self, based on our sanskaras. And when these sanskaras become zero based on our daily action, then we are united with our own self. That is how uh, I look at all these messages. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, thank you, Kama. Ashokji, any observation? If not, I will just continue. Thank you, Jai Baba. So Appendix 2 is reminiscences. Baba often reminisced about during the 7th month, particularly when he showed the Sahwasis places near Ahmednagar that were associated with his early activities. The fact that a member of Mandli and Sahwasis had shared in the events which rendered these spots memorable added to the flavor of the retelling. The various reminiscences by Baba and members of Sehwaz group have been regrouped here for the purpose of consecutive narration and are not, therefore, in the sequence in which they were originally given. It should always be borne in mind that Baba's gestures convey an essential idea. This in turn is clothed with words by one of the Mandali. There's an asterisk there. Baba gave up communication via the alphabet board in October 1954. Therefore, the words are not always Baba's very own, unless he chooses tediously to have a word spelt out, but the sense is his. Afternoon, in commenting on a performance just given by the Telugu group of his own Bara Katha, the story of Baba's life dramatically portrayed in song and dance, Baba had Irich tell of events concerning Baba's birth, which had been described to Irich's mother by Baba's mother, Shiri Mai. Shiri Mai had an unusual dream just a few days before Baba's birth, February 25, 1894. In the dream, she was led to a wide open area where she was rapidly surrounded by a sea of foreign-appearing people, extending on all sides to the horizons. Shirimai felt that all the strangers were looking steadily and expectantly towards her. She awoke in a state of alarm. When she described this dream to relatives and friends, an elderly person told her that rather than worry, she should feel happy, as the symbolism of dream indicated that the child, uh, within brackets Baba, would be awaited and esteemed by a vast number of people. On other occasions, Ramju retold more of Shirimai's stories. Meherwan Baba, Meher Baba's name in Meherwan Sheriar Irani, has been my problem even as a child. Some months after his birth, I dreamed that I was standing in the doorway of our house holding Meherwan in my arms. I saw that there was a well nearby in the compound, quote within brackets, of the house. The figure of a striking woman like a Hindu goddess was raising out of the center of the well. I could clearly see the lavish green sari in which she was dressed and the many green bangles which she was adorned. Bright flowered designs were painted on her forehead in many colors. In her hands, she held a tray containing flowers, a lighted lamp, and other articles used by Hindus in their worship. I stood motionless in a fascination until the weird figure beckoned me to hand Meherwan over to her, trying to hold him all the more tightly. I was awakened from the dream. Shirimai had continued her telling of her early worries about her precocious child. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Precocious child, Precocious child. Meherwan was very active and mischievous from the time he was able to toddle, and would walk out of the house when my attention was distracted. This often compelled me when I was especially busy with housework or had to go for my bath and there was no one in the house to look after me, to tie one of my sari to his waist and other to the bedstead. Even then, I could not always keep him out of the mischief. Once, about January 1895, I had left him playing on the floor. Returning to the room some minutes later, I was horrified to see him playing merrily with a big black snake. This time it wasn't a dream. With a piercing scream, I rushed forward, but the snake slipped quickly out of the house and was never seen again. Several days later, Baba described the all-important occasion when the great Sufi saint Hazrat Babajan kissed him on the forehead, tearing away the veil which obscured his own God realization. When the five perfect masters bring me down, they draw a veil over me. Although Babajan was in the form of a woman, she was one of them, the five perfect masters, and she unveiled me in my present form. With just a kiss on the forehead, between the eyebrows, Babajan made me experience thrills of indescribable bliss, which continued for about 9 months. Then one night, January 1914, she made me realize in a flash the infinite bliss of self-realization, God realization. At the time Babajan gave me the Nirvikalp in conceptual experience of my own reality, the illusory physical, subtle and mental bodies, mind, worlds, and the one and all created things cease to exist for me even as illusion. Then I began to see that only I and nothing else existed. The infinite bliss of my self-realization was, is, and will remain continuous. At the moment I experience both infinite bliss as well as infinite suffering. Once I drop the body, only bliss will remain. But after I become self-conscious, I could not have said all this, nor could I say it even now if I had not been, if it had not been for the indescribable spiritual agonies which I passed through for another period of 9 months until October 1914. In returning to normal consciousness of the suffering of others. During these 9 months, I remained in a state which no one else could have tolerated for even 9 days. After physical death, an ordinary man is usually dead to the world, and the world is dead to him. Yet he continues to live his discarnate life beyond the sphere of gross existence. During the first 3 days, if my superconscious state, within brackets January 1914, I was truly dead to everybody and everything other than my own infinite reality. Although my physical body continued to function more or less normally, although dead, though really living, I was consequently considered by others to be seriously ill. I was allowed to remain in bed, lying with wide open, vacant eyes which saw nothing. When, within brackets, the individualized soul enters the seventh plane, which is the one, the only plane of reality, his consciousness is fully freed once and for all from everything else. It then is wholly occupied by reality of this real self or God. So it is said that the individual soul becomes superconscious or God conscious. To other souls who function within the illusion of duality, the God conscious one may seem to be physically as much alive as they are. Nevertheless, regardless of the fact that the superconscious one's gross, subtle, and mental bodies may remain functioning, he is dead to illusion for all the time. His consciousness has transcended the illusory limitations of birth and deaths that lie within the illusion of duality. The conscious state of God is known only to those who have achieved it. Such a state of realization of divine oneness is completely beyond the domain of mind itself. It is rare for man to become superconscious. One in the millions might get it. It is rarer still for the God conscious to be able to return with God consciousness to normal consciousness of all illusory existences, gross, subtle, and mental, as a perfect master. Usually, the gross, subtle, and mental bodies of the God conscious are one automatically drop within 4 days. If, after attaining superconsciousness, he does not begin to return to normal consciousness of life of the illusory world of duality. There's an asterisk here. For a more complete discussion, see Part 2, Chapter 6, The Ways to the Path and its States and Stages. In an unusual case of all three bodies of the God conscious, one continue to function indefinitely in the relative higher and lower spheres of illusion. Then for others, there is such a one. Sorry. Then for others, such a one is truly the ever-living dead, a real mazub, a kamil, or conscious God in the midst of illusion-conscious humanity. To touch such a one is to touch God Himself. In my case, I did not drop the body on the fourth day, nor did I become established in the gross sphere as a mazub, nor did I begin to regain the novel consciousness of a perfect master. Only such perfect one is capable of knowing the state in which I had to remain for 9 months. On the fourth day, and after I was slightly conscious of my body and began to move about without any consciousness of my surroundings, I received no promptings from my mind as would an ordinary man. I had no knowledge of the things I did or did not do. I did not sleep and had no appetite. No one has an idea throughout this period that I sat, talked, walked, lay down, and did everything by instinct, more like an automation than an ordinary human being. My sleepless starting, vacant eyes worried my mother the most. She believed and told others that I had gone mad. In her anguish, she could not refrain me from going to places, for going once to Babajan and demanding to know what she had done to me. Shirima did this because she knew I used to go and sit near Babajan for a while each night during the previous 9 months. Babajan indicated to my mother that I was intended to shake the world into wakefulness, but that meant nothing to Shirimai in her distress. For a long time, I was given regular medical treatment, but no amount of drugging and injections could put me to sleep. As Shirimai used to say, having exhausted all available means, she could put me to sleep. As Shirimai used to say, having exhausted all available means, sorry, I read wrongly. For a long time, I was given regular medical treatment, but no amount of drugging and injections could put me to sleep. As Shirima used to say, having exhausted all available means, she sent me to Bombay to stay with Jamshed for a change. Jamshed was Baba's late elder brother. Thinking to keep me occupied with day-to-day activities, Jamshed encouraged me to cook the food for the two of us. Sometimes I did the cooking all right, but I did it as I did other things without knowing what I was doing. I can recall the particular bench in the Victoria Gardens on which I passed most of the time sitting alone, entirely oblivious of the world and its affairs. Although the infinite bliss I experienced in my superconscious state remained conscious as it is now, I suffered agonies in returning towards normal consciousness of illusion. Occasionally, to gain some sort of relief, I used to knock my head so furiously against the walls and windows that some of them showed cracks. In reality, there's no suffering as such, only infinite bliss. Although suffering is illusion, still within the realm of illusion, it is suffering. In the midst of illusion, I established my reality. My reality, although crushed by illusion, remained connected with the illusion. That is why I suffered incalculable spiritual agonies. 9 months after my self-realization, November 1914, I began to be somewhat conscious of my surroundings. Life returned to my vacant eyes. Although I would not sleep, I began regularly to eat small quantities of food. There's an asterisk there. It says, it is incredible fact that Baba did not eat for 9 months following his self-realization in January 1914. I now knew that I was doing, but I continued to do things intuitively, as if impelled to do them by inner forces. I did not do things of my own accord or when asked by others. For example, when I began to teach within brackets December 1915 Persian to Bua Sahib. Bua Sahib is the late Behram F. Irani, the first and the one of closest Baba's disciples. For example, when I began to teach in December 1915 Persian to Bua Sahib, my mother tried to collect more pupils for me, thinking that this would hasten my recovery. But I would attend to no one else and continue to teach only Bua Sahib. Later on, within brackets April 1915, I also began to go for long distance on foot or by vehicle. Once I left Pune by rail for Raichur, more than 300 miles south of Pune, but after traveling for only 34 miles, I felt the urge to leave the train at Ketgaon. Therefore, the first time I came in physical contact with Narayan Maharaj, one of the 5 perfect masters, whose ashram is not so far away from that railway station. Similarly, from time to time, I was also drawn to see mazhubs like Banemian Baba at Aurangabad and Tipu Baba at Bombay. Once in company of Behram Bua Sahib, I travelled as far as Nagpur and saw Tajuddin Baba, another of the 5 perfect masters. Finally, December 1915, I felt impelled to call on Sai Baba, the perfect master among masters. At that time, he was returning in a procession from Lindi in Shirdi, a place to and from which he was led every day in order to ease himself. Despite the crowds, I intuitively prostrated myself before him on the road. When I arose, Sai Baba looked straight at me and exclaimed, Parvardigar, God Almighty Sustainer. I then felt drawn to walk to a nearby temple of Khandova, in which Maharaj, Sri Maharaj, was staying in seclusion. He had been living on water under Sai Baba's direct guidance for over 3 years. At that time, Maharaj was reduced almost to a skeleton due to his fast on water. He was also naked and surrounded by filth. When I came near to him, Maharaj greeted me, so to speak, with a stone which he threw at me with great force. It struck me on my forehead exactly where Babajan had kissed me, hitting with such a force that it drew blood. The mark of that injury is still on my forehead, but that blow from Maharaj was a stroke of Gyan, Marifat of Hakikat or divine knowledge. Figuratively, Maharaj had started to rouse me from sound sleep, but in sound sleep, man is unconscious, while I, being superconscious, was wide awake in sound sleep. With that stroke, Maharaj had begun to help me return to ordinary consciousness of the realm of illusion. That was the beginning of my present infinite suffering in illusion, which I experienced simultaneously with my infinite bliss in reality. But it took me 7 years of acute struggle under Maharaj's active guidance to return to completely return completely to and become established in normal human consciousness of the illusion of duality, which yet experiencing continuously my while yet experiencing continuously my superconsciousness. The more normally conscious I become, the more acute my suffering grew. For years, therefore, I continued to knock my head frequently on the stones. That was how I eventually lost all my teeth, for through the constant knocking they became prematurely loose. This also resulted in a wound which was constantly fresh, and therefore I always used to keep a colored handkerchief tied around my forehead. The more I returned to worldly normality, the more impatient my mother became to see me settled in the routine of life. To satisfy her, I joined Khan within bracket Kawasji Khatan Theatrical Company as a manager in 1916 and traveled with the show to Lahore. Several years later, after becoming almost three-fourths normally conscious while retaining full superconsciousness, I went to Sakori and stayed for 6 months, July to December 1921, near Maharaj. At the end of this period, Maharaj made me know fully what I am. I was just what I am, just as Maharaj had made me feel in a flash what I am. During those 6 months, Maharaj and I used to sit near each other in a hut behind closed doors almost every night. On one such occasion, Maharaj folded his hands to me and said, "Meherwan, you are like the avatar you are the avatar, and I salute you." For about 4 months after this, January 22, I stayed in a small jhopri thatched hut. It was built for me temporarily on the edge of some fields in the very thinly populated area of what is now the Shivaji Nagar area of Pune. In this manner, I began to live independently, surrounded by men who formed the nucleus of the Mandali. One of these was the first to start addressing me as Baba. Some of the men were drawn intuitively to me before they had any clear idea of my inner state. Others were attracted to me by hints from Babajan and Maharaj, and still others I drew directly to me. At that time, both Babajan and Maharaj began telling various people referring to me that the child is now capable of moving the whole world at a sign from his finger. Once in early 1922, Maharaj asked a large gathering of Mandali and said, "Listen to me most carefully. I have handed over my key, within brackets spiritual charge, now to Meherwan, and henceforth you all stick to him and do as he instructs you. With God's grace, you will soon reach goal." Still others, Maharaj asked intuitively to follow me. In 1922, Baba established his first and ideal ashram in Bombay, which was called Manzil-e-Meem, abode of M. Here, some other than 40 men of various faiths, qualifications stayed night and day with Baba for 10 months. Leading a routine life of religious discipline, in those days Baba would often become temporarily violent, but showed no trace of malice in his actions. My body, he commented, was then very lean, not clean, but also supple, as I was constantly and energetically active. from 4 in the morning till the 7 in the night, in the severest cold, I would move about in my thin malsadra. Those who did not know me well at the time might well have considered me very quickly tempered, for suddenly, with or without provocations, I would beat anyone at hand. Wow, Baba used to beat people. uh, should we take a pause here or continue? Anybody has any comments?
Yeah, I think please you take a pause here, and then almost 9 now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
So
let's
mine
close
in
this here.
this page is
In
that
fact, it is 9 and I'm back.
yes,
So,
Karthik.
in a sense,
Over to
I'm
you.
glad I jumped out because I was able to be useful here. So, in that sense, thank you, Baba, for giving an opportunity to be useful here and be on the call. So, but I think we can wrap up if everybody's okay at the point where you're pausing, Sunil. And if you can send me a snapshot of that location or the page number and para reference, I'll make a note in my book as well.
I'll do it now, Karthik.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to seeing you all again in the coming week. And I'm still
And the
backed
new
up
year.
on uploading everything. Yes, and the
Yeah.
new year, indeed, Sanjay. So,
Yeah.
where's
Yes.
Nomita? She should be planning a party for New Year, an online party for us. I will work on that with her.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
busy with something, but I'll let her know.
Yes, we should do something. We'll plan
Yes.
something out. All right.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Thank you,
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.